So everyone, what I want to play today is the glass game, all right? And the glass game is something that came up last year. I was in Japan, and I was teaching workshops in Japan, and I was working with two of my favorite installers in the world. It's Koji and Ito. And 2 years ago, I trained them to become Avery certified installers in Japan, and they had been teaching about a year of workshops in Japan, and they said, while we're having dinner, we have a cool new technique of how to show new installers how to pull material. Because what a lot of new installers or even experienced installers don't quite understand is that you have to pull the material really hard to get it on the car, right? And a lot of beginner installers they think the material is really fragile, so they don't pull hard enough. And even when we get to bumpers, experienced installers don't quite pull it. So what this game shows is really showing how to pull the film, not only how hard, but in what direction. I mean, I think Jim has a great story where last year he was in Detroit and he was wrapping a Porsche with black chrome, and he's working with Jeremy Connor, great installer based in North Carolina. And Jim said that he was literally pulling Jeremy, who weighs 250 pounds, through the workshop. Like, that's literally how hard he's pulling on the material, and Jeremy's just holding the material. But that's how hard you have to pull the material sometimes, especially when you get to material like chrome, all right? So what I'm going to do on this hood right now is show you a very basic way to learn how to start to, pull on the material. Then Jim and I are going to wrap the hood, create glass, and that's really good for beginner and intermediates. And then Kiss and I are going to wrap the bumper and show how to create glass. So the whole idea with glass is this, all right? So let's say I got a simple panel on the hood, and what I want to do is I want to just release the backing paper a little bit. So I'm just going to pull the material down here, and I'm going to lock it on. So pull it down, take my snitty, cut it, and I'm just going to anchor it in place. So pull it here, lock it to the side, lock it to the side. And from here, what I can do is release the entire liner, top to bottom. Now what the glass game is right now is the material has wrinkles. If the material has wrinkles, then you're not doing good at the glass game. The glass game is to get the material with no wrinkles. How do you do that? All right? There's two ways to create a tension-free, wrinkle-free straight, or create glass. One is with heat, right? Why you don't want to use heat is if you use heat right now, if you stretch it from here, where I anchored, and I used heat, and I want to, let's say, come to the front of the bumper, if you use heat, this line will go much farther, all right? The goal is to always keep the material under 10% stretch. But I think if you pull the material at room temperature, you can actually not overstretch it and create glass at the same time. So how do I do that is by pulling hard enough to flatten these wrinkles out, but also in the right direction. All right. Last year in my noontime demo, I talked about a technique I call triangles. And triangles is by pulling, instead of straight, if I come from here and I pull straight, the material is still going to collapse in here. And the reason why is I can read the wrinkles. Right now I look at the wrinkles and they're pointing in. And for me, they point in at a shape. So right here, they come in almost like at a 25 degree angle. So this shape for me is the shape of a triangle. So this is telling me where to pull. Not only is it telling me where to pull, but also how hard. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to follow this line. I'm going to pull here, and I'm going to pull here. So I pick the material up, and I'm going to come down here, and I'm pulling really hard, and I create glass. And I lock it in. Then I come down over here, same thing, pick the material up, just a little bit, to here. And from this line, I'm going to pull, and I'm pulling nice and hard. And just by pulling with the right tension and in the right direction, I create glass on the main area, or even here I can even pick this up just a little bit. Flatten these wrinkles out a little bit. And now on the main surface area, I got glass. So by pulling with the right tension, this is good for beginners to get a small piece, get it on the hood, and even here you can see that I only stretched it about 1 centimeter. So from here to here, I kept the material under 10% stretch, which is great. So I created glass, and because I have Aerograss technology, this is Hexas film, I can now squeegee the film on without getting a lot of bubbles. Cool. So this is for beginners. So what I want to show now is a beginner kind of works on this piece, creates the glass, and then what they're going to do is step up to a hood. And I think a hood is a great demonstration on how to create glass on a bigger section. So Jim's going to help me with this. So Jim's going to jump on that side. And so what I've done before now is I've prepped it. So again, beginner installers can use, let's say, a scrap hood piece. Doesn't have to be like a premium cast. We're going to flip this around here. And what I did at this point was I created a line in the middle. All right, this is our marker. marked it on the windshield, and now we have the emblem here. So we basically just line it up, get it locked and loaded. And so what we're going to do is we're going to lock the material in on this hinge line, then we're going to create glass. So what we're going to do is we're going to flip the panel over. I'm going to pull the backing paper towards Jim. Jim's just going to pull it nice and even. The magnets are holding in place. Once we have it to here, use my snitty. Now we're going to flip it over to Jim, and he's just going to grab the corners. And from this point, I'm just going to lock it in, basically right on this line here, and stop. All right? And Jim's just going to let the material lay flat. And what I'll do here is I'll flip it over to Jim, and then remove the backing paper about halfway. Jim will hand it back to me, and I'll flip it back over. So once I release the material, Jim and I are going to read the wrinkles right now. How does it look? Can we squeegee right now? No, because the material has wrinkles. So this means wrinkles mean no, glass means go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull normal. How if I'm doing a normal install, I'll lock it down a little farther at the front, lock it down to here so we have a straight hinge, top to bottom. So I'm going to create glass. I'm going to pick the material up just a little bit, just to the hinge, and I'm going to pull like I normally do. Pulling nice and hard, creating my glass, locking it in. And in this case, we're just wrapping the hood. Pull nice and firm, pull it nice and taut. And even here on the side, I want to create glass on the entire section of the hood, so I'm really putting my body into it. Really pulling, really pulling, really pulling. And now I basically create glass. Because it has air egress, I can squeegee. Cool. So I pulled nice and hard, but if you're, let's say you're owner of a shop, like Jim Miller has, how many installers do you have now? 5, 6? You have a new guy come in and you say, I pulled really hard. And they say, well, how hard? And you say, hard. And then you say, well, how hard? So Jim will say, okay, I'll try it. So now Jim's going to try it like he's someone who's never wrapped before. So Jim will kind of pull with glass and maybe not pull in the right direction. Jim's never wrapped. He's only been wrapping since 1978. So Jim's pulling, but he's pulling like he's scared. He's pulling like maybe the material is not going to quite go down where he wants it. So how can I get Jim to figure out how hard to pull? I could say, Jim, you're pulling, like a grandpa. You need to pull harder. But that doesn't quite get it because, maybe your grandpa is super strong. I don't know. So this is why we put the line here. All right, so now this is really when we get into the glass game and the feel of the material. So Jim and I are going to pick it back up, and the goal right now is to make sure that this line stays in the middle of the emblem, and this line stays in the middle of the tape. And if we do that, that means we're creating good glass, good tension on the film. So Jim and I will pick it back up. All right. Right now, Jim's a beginner. So I'm going to hold the material, and Jim's holding the material, and I'm going to start pulling how hard I just pulled. And Jim's like, dude, that's way harder than I thought. Like, I'm going to pull him across the hood. So Jim's like, wow, I need to pull harder. So I say, pull harder. So I'm going to let Jim pull a little harder, and I'm still like, okay, I'm not pulling as hard as I can. I'm going to pull harder, harder, and are we lined up and centered? I need you to pull harder. Cool. And now we lock it in and lay it down. Cool. So Jim is starting to get the feel of how the material needs to behave. Because right now, we'll have Jim do it again, we'll anchor it in the center. And now that Jim knows how to feel and how hard to pull the material, Jim will create glass again. And again, imagine if you're a beginner. Now you get that confidence, like, whoa, I pulled the material really hard. Let's see what happens. So I lock it in for Jim. And why don't you pick it up again to here and pull with glass again. So both of us will do it. Watch. And I want you, before Jim does this, I want you to drop it again. And we'll go back to the start. Jim will just drop it. Let it hang out. Yeah. Read the wrinkles. So when I started off with the first panel, we had the first panel, which is a rectangle. And remember I said the shape of the wrinkles was like a triangle. They're pointing to the middle. That told me to pull this way, and it went flat. Look at the wrinkles now, especially right here. Where are the wrinkles pointing? Right to the corner, right to the corner. So where does that tell us to pull? If we pull to here, we're going to get wrinkles. But if we pull to here, it's going to go flat. But we have to pull hard. All right, so Jim will do it, and I'll do it, and we'll create glass together. We're leaving the middle. So So pick it up. I'll pick my side up to the hinge in the middle. I'll pull nice and hard, create my glass. Pick it up nice and easy. Pull really hard. You can see I'm putting my whole body weight into it. It was interesting. I taught a workshop in Portland, Oregon a while ago, and someone had been on the Rap Institute, which is my online streaming video platform, and he says, on the videos, I never appreciated how hard you pulled on the material. I mean, right there, I'm putting my whole body weight into it. Jim's putting his whole body weight into it. And now we're creating better glass because we're pulling with the right tension. So now let's say you go from a beginner installer to intermediate and you're working with someone who's more experienced. Then you say, let's play the glass game. Who's going to make the best glass on the hood right now? And so you make it kind of a sport. And then you start learning how to pull in the right direction. And then once you create glass, you can squeegee and get it on. Super cool. So this is really good technique for beginners and intermediate installers and getting the confidence and building the confidence to work to something like a bumper, which is a totally different ballgame. So Jim, you're done for this one. And I'm going to now take Kiss. So Kiss, you can get rid of the gizmo. Let's take this off. And what Kiss and I are going to do is we're going to work around this. I think which side of the bumper is better for the camera, this side or that side in terms of, okay. So we're going to focus more on this side of the bumper, but you can see it up on the camera there. I believe so. Let's do it. So now what Kiss and I are going to do is we're going to take, just kind of like what Jim and I did, we're just going to take the material off and let it sit, and we're going to read the wrinkles. So pull the backing paper off, hand it to Kiss. Pull again. Super cool. Okay. And what we're going to do is we're going to treat this bumper very similar to what we just did on the hood. Is we're going to let it sit in the middle and then just let it lay flat, and we're just going to see what happens. We're not going to put any tension on the material, and we're just going to do that. All right. So if you're an advanced installer, you kind of know what to do, but if you're a beginner, this is totally freaking you out. It's because here is nice and even. There's no tension there. We can lock it in just like we did in the middle of the hood because it's flat. But now look at this nightmare of wrinkles right there, right? So what Kiss and I are going to do is we're going to pull the material around the corner with just like we're scared. Like we've never wrapped a bumper before. Even though Kiss has wrapped how many thousands of cars, okay? But this is what happens, A, when you don't use any heat, but B, if you're scared. I always say a triangle, you should pull it 45 degrees. You pull 45 degrees this way and the material does what you want. But if I pull 60 degrees and Kiss pulls kind of just not with enough tension, you get this. Like we're pulling, okay? And we kind of made the wrinkles a little better, but they still look like that. And what I see sometimes, especially for someone who's just starting out or working with material, they'll kind of somehow lock it on here with their squeegee, and then what they do is they take their heat gun and they start heating and creating glass. But at this point in the glass game, you're not going to get a 10 out of 10, you're going to get probably a 2 out of 10 because the material is going to shrink over time because this tells me there's too much tension. We're reading the wrinkles. This is a no-no. This means no. Glass means go, wrinkles mean no. This is a big no. So what now Kiss and I are going to do is I'm going to pull at 45 degrees, and then Kiss is going to pull harder, and I'm going to pull in the right angle. And let's see if it gets a little better. So let's play the glass game one more time. So Kiss is going to get down there. I'm going to pull at 45, lock it, pull at 45, lock it, pull at 45, lock it, and looks better to me. Cool. Because we pulled at the right angle. I mean, I'm really flexing. I mean, I don't need to go to the gym when I get off work tonight. I mean, that's my gym. That's my triceps, my biceps. It's cool, all right? And Kiss is pulling, so he's got his biceps going. It's nice. I mean, wrapping cars is kind of like going to the gym. It's interesting. So if I look here, this makes me happy. But right here, I see a little bit of tension. That scares me because I think 3 years it might not hold up. Right here, that scares me a little bit. A good installer starts to read those wrinkles. So in the glass game, I think we got about a 7 right now. But let's go for 10 out of 10. All right, how we do that on bumpers, I think, is good to add a little bit of heat. And because Kiss has such a good feel for the film, we're going to pick it up and we're going to try it again. So in this case, you can see the tension in the material. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to heat the material from top to bottom. And because Kiss has such a good feel for the material, he's going to start working the film around the bumper as I pull. So we're reading the wrinkles together. I see a couple over here. Get the glass out. I'm only raising the temperature of the material, I would say maybe 4 or 5 Celsius. Not much, Notice I'm keeping the heat gun moving, and Kiss is moving here. So now that we've relaxed it, got the material doing what we want, we're gonna pick it up just a wrinkle there, and then we're gonna pull. Cool. So I like this, all right? So we stop, we lock it in here, but if you come over here with the camera, what do we got? I'm gonna lock it in right across the top here to here, and now we have kind of what Jim and I had on the hood. Bottom and top is we have the wrinkles are pointing to the corner. Right here it points to the corner, and right here if I let the wrinkle down, it points to the corner. So what Kiss and I are gonna do is that triangle again. So we're gonna pull with a triangle, give it a kiss of heat right here. That's it. And then I'm gonna pull, and Kiss is gonna pull, and glass. Pick this back up, and watch this. If I heat it with heat, watch what happens. It shrinks back. So I'm letting the material shrink back on itself, which is cool. So what are we gonna do down here is Kiss is gonna pick it up right to here. I'm gonna give it a burst of heat to here, and then I'm gonna pull, and Kiss is gonna pull right to the corner and lock it down, all right? And now that we've got, I feel like that's pretty good on the glass game. Even here, where the material got a little bit of wrinkle right in the middle, we pick the material back up just right to there, and watch what happens if we give it just a kiss of heat. We're not gonna stretch it, we're gonna let it wrap itself. Cool. And now we're here, and because we have air egress technology, we can just push this out with our finger, and so far in the glass game, I feel like we're doing good. Cool. Now we got this right here. Remember earlier I said that tension. What's the difference between a 10 out of 10 and a 7 out of 10 is right here. Right here, we've already actually wrapped behind the bumper right here. And there's no wrinkles. That's 10 out of 10 with glass game on the hot spot. And not only then, how we're shrinking the material here, like we just did, we're gonna do the same thing now here, and the bumper is actually gonna wrap itself. It actually wrapped 2 centimeters farther under here with no wrinkles. Really cool. And then I just pick it up, lock it down, and by playing the glass game and knowing how to pull, maybe sometimes adding a little bit of heat, having enough tension and pressure, then you can work the material around. So why don't we do the last corner so you can kind of see it in full motion. How do we do it real time? So why don't we jump on this side. So glass game, we're gonna pull nice and hard just to kind of lock it into here. Lock it in, got glass here, got glass here, stop. Now you can read the material. Now we got tension on the material. This tells me to relax it a little bit. And because Kiss has that great feel for the material, notice how he's just incrementally pulling the material around the corner. I heat it, so I'm reading the material. Kiss is reading the material. And once we got it hot enough, right to about here, now we're gonna rock and roll. So we come here, we pause, we can do the bottom corner, check, and then in one motion, we can do the top corner. Bam. And then we got glass. And even here, just quietly pick it up, and this will snap right into place. To here. Kiss is gonna lightly heat it because I picked it up. Bam. So it just sits down nice and easy. These wrinkles, this material comes out because we got air egress, rock and roll. We check the bottom, we check the top, we check the corners, and now glass game's good, even on a tricky bumper like this. So it's having that confidence to pull really hard, or in Jim's case, pull Jeremy Connor throughout a shop with chrome. But sometimes even like good installers, even though you see guys in the wrap contest, especially when you get to the whole side of the car, when they start pulling on the material, you're gonna see the car shake. That's good. You want it to shake. You want to pull the material like a man or a woman. You want to pull it super strong and get that material on and have the confidence, because once you get the confidence to wrap, you can enter wrap contests like this. And this is super exciting. I mean, this is the highest level of competition that I've seen, and this is the second year I've done it, is that how people are pulling. Have you noticed that they're not using a heat gun very much? That's the sign of a good installer. Is a good installer, because they know how to play the glass game, they can pull without heat. And if you can pull and create glass without heat, that means the material stays in place, but it also means that you're wrapping fast. The more heat I use, the slower I wrap. So maybe on a bumper I'll use a little bit of heat, but you don't see the good installers use heat on a hood or a fender or a door they can rock and roll without heat. That's because they can play the glass game and is having that confidence. So does anyone have any questions about the glass game? It's good for intermediate and beginner installers for sure. What I do is I have a company called the Wrap Institute, all right, and that's my online streaming platform. And for FESPA this year, I have another coupon code, and the postcards are on the front of the car there. You can get 33% off, and it's an online streaming video platform where now I have almost 1,000 videos. I even feature Jim Miller on it, and you get 33% off of a one-year membership. So normally it's $150, but if you use TWI FESPA 2017, you get the 33% off, so it's, instead of $149, it's $99. So cool stuff. And again, for me, I put a new video out every day, new techniques on walls, windows, floors, but even the glass game. And this video will go up on the Wrap Institute as well. So definitely appreciate you guys watching. The next round is up at 1 o'clock for the semifinals of the World European Wrap Championships. So thank you for watching. I appreciate your time, and have a good afternoon. Thank you.